So we are having the next lecture by Kostis Tafilakis. The subject is Anti-Humanist Alternatives in Recent Art Activism and Performative Experimentations, Notes on the Greek Case. Kostis Tafilakis is an art theorist and artist. He was a postdoc researcher at Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, studying the influence of Rancière's and Badiou's political theories on the art field. Along with Yannis Stavrakakis, he edited the Greek anthology The Political in Contemporary Art. Some of his recently published essays focus on activist practices and over-identification amidst the Greek crisis, while others are critical responses to recent artistic collectivism. So, thank you very much.
Can you listen to me? Oh. Is it working? Yeah? Okay, loud enough? So if I stand here, or this is dead. Sofia Bebeza? Yeah, thank
Sofia Bebeza, it's not dead.
Okay. Hi, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me. So this presentation wishes to offer some reflections on various forms of anti-humanist art practice or anti-humanist artistic activism. Well, I didn't coin the term. As a matter of fact, various theorists, from Matthew Poole to artists collective Pilengalia, are using the term to refer to artistic examples that most usually employ methods of over-identification, subversive affirmation, or irony in order to interrogate the ideological, social, or economic status quo. So in this type of practice, as you may know, and I hope you all know, it's kind of standard issue, in this type of practice, the artist avoids to maintain a pure opposition or critical distance towards the subject she wishes to interrogate, and on the contrary, proceeds to a full identification with what she wishes to challenge, an excessive identification, an over-identification. So for example, some of the work that Vasilis Noulas was presenting before me, the posters, for example, could be a case of ironic subversive affirmation in the sense that he adopts the format of the specific poster to subvert the original meaning of the poster and make it work in another sense. Okay, so for example, this can be a very good example of subversive affirmation. So my interest in today's anti-humanist art activism and art in general in Greece is a consequence of a quest for modes of artistic action that may challenge various socio-political deadlocks that seem to define the momentum, in my view. And one of these deadlocks is what I personally understand as a moralization of the political sphere, a moralistic turn, a moralistic shift in today's politics. A regression to humanist depictions of Greek social strata and collective struggles, and the most exemplary instantiation of this moralist deadlock is, I think, the perception of contemporary Greeks as a resisting nation, you know, the incarnation of some essential transhistorical concept of the Greek as a primordial human essence fighting against its alienation. Cultural expressions, art, mainstream or underground, activism and resistance are also caught up in the haze of this humanist moralism. In my view, this very central ideological overdetermination leaves too little space to understand social movements, for example, such as the Greek indignados, the Greek aganaktismeni, and their right-wing or left-wing patriots as enclaves of spontaneous redefinition of life or resistance to neoliberalism. The most disastrous effect of this moralist turn is perhaps its impact on resistance and on the way we understand resistance to neoliberalism, resistance to the conservative administration of Europe. And this impact can be felt across various countries, of course, and ideological orientations. It is not an exclusively Greek phenomenon. Today's dominant forms of cultural resistance, the various spontaneous experimentation with collectivization, autogestion, self-organization, self-management, are also not only, but also the vectors of a certain regressive humanist discourse. The proliferation of alternative communities, the experiments with self-management, the micro-networks of alternative social economy, etc., are not simply some imminent transition towards a post-humanist collective politics. To a great extent, these cultural expressions are premised on a moralistic and resentful rejection of postmodern individualism. And this moralistic rejection is inscribed in their very discourse. So this type of moralistic humanism started to occupy radical discourses since the very start of the so-called Greek crisis. In a quasi-paradoxical way, the city, the environment of the city, started to appear as the habitus of a particular discontent, an alienating setting. In an interview at the Greek web portal TVXS, the educator and eco-farmer Georgios Kolembas explains that the only viable answer to globalization and crisis is the decentralization, relocalization, and self-organization of an ecological society of equal distribution. According to Kolembas, this is an escape from the rocas coincidentes of both statism and privatization. Kolembas wishes to explore a third sector, a third way, out of both socialist statism and the free market. Social economy, egalitarian economy, moral economy, popular economy is what comprises this sort of third sector. Okay? In his view, this third sector should take the form of a small-scale units of production with emphasis on locality, economy of proximity, participation, and democratic function. He concludes with this moral dictum: he who provides for all provides for himself. In a recent article on the blooming of eco-communities, ecological communities, on the Greek mountain Pelion, Kolembas stresses the need for a return to nature and the recovery of an essential bond with it. The web page of the network of Greek eco-communities informs us that eco-community is a model of life that strives to restore harmony between man and natural environment. The residents of Greek eco-communities or members of eco-groups such as Real and Free, State of Nature, Hope Village strive for cultural blossoming, moral values, and spiritual ascent. And this is a picture from the Hope Village, Elpido Hori. As you can see here, this guy's doing some kind of fest, okay, at the Hope Village eco-community. What do you laugh about it? What's the problem? You have a problem with that? Anyway, meanwhile, at the self-organized, occupied Navarino Park, central Athens, the goers have circulated a manifesto analyzing why they have, as they say, dismantled the asphalt to create a garden against the state's tendency to turn space into an unfriendly and deserted setting for the hasty metropolitan life, as they say. They have reappropriated space in order to educate themselves and others on the cultivation of land and the self-management of food. In the age of crisis and permanent attack by capital and state, as they say, they try to rediscover the relation between city and countryside and understand the process of the production of food, which is fundamental for every human cell and for society itself. So, you see, there's a human cell, and there is society, and the human cell is exactly the primordial particle of this wider society in this type of discourse. So the aforementioned examples are only a small, and indeed a very, very, very small portion of an accelerated, ultra-humanist critique of the city amidst the Greek financial crisis. In similar ways, those subject or collectives express their disgust with urban alienation while they envision various forms of societal reproductive autarky and self-sufficiency. It is here that I feel the need to break with this moralist humanism and search for the outlines of another type of cultural activism that can challenge the regressive dream of a return to some beautiful community of autarky. But certainly, a critique of this type of humanism demands a specification, a methodology, a definition of the anti-humanist viewpoint we are willing to adopt. And there are numerous expressions of anti-humanism in the history of modern and postmodern thought, and for sure, this is not the time for an extensive discussion on such paradigms, from Nietzsche to Derrida, via Heidegger, and certainly other examples. But if there is a milestone in the discussion of humanism versus anti-humanism, then this certainly is Louis Althusser's attack on the tradition of humanist Marxism and humanist socialism in his attempt to establish a scientific anti-humanist Marxist position inspired by the structuralism of Lévi-Strauss, Lacan's psychoanalysis, and the work of Bachelard. The most famous text of this endeavor, as you may know, is his 1964 essay, Marxism and Humanism, a total break with the early Romantic Marx of the economic and philosophical manuscripts of 1844. Althusser proposed that there is no subject of history as a given human society. There is no such thing as the man in history, the human in history, and this lack of a subject can neither be substituted by a plurality of subjects. And as you may know, this reformulation triggered a vitriolic attack by a prominent representative of the humanist tradition, the social historian E.P. Thompson, who wrote the Poverty of Theory to reject Althusser by calling him a theoretical Stalinist and a slanderer of empirical thought. Thompson developed his own humanist tradition of a British native socialism, an ethical socialism with predecessors and heroes such as William Blake and William Morris. Now, although this distinction between Marxist humanism and scientific anti-humanism is a bit blurry today, I would like to suggest that today's humanist tradition and humanist socialism has found shelter in the various currents of autonomous Marxism that have become, of course, extremely fashionable in the art field lately. Perhaps not lately, but at least for a decade. The problem here, I think, at least my problem, to say it clear, is the way that expressions of solidarity, conviviality, self-management, self-organization are usually understood in terms of these autonomous currents. And although autonomous Marxists try to grasp a certain pluralization of forms of self-management, they actually never avoid to present this dispersal in terms of a human dispositive, a general intellect, or even an outbreak of love. Now, there's a discourse about love in the work of Hart and Negri, for example, today. Such conceptualizations diminish the political through humanist idealizations. The main theoretical demise of these currents is that, as I perceive it, in the end, they come up either with some sort of philosophy of life, life as immanently resistant to capitalism. Sorry, I don't accept this as a philosophical axiom. Or with some reductionist economism that ascribes a particular land to a group or population as a common. So I'm very suspicious of the discourse of the commons, and this is a very long story. A way to see the humanism behind these discourses is by focusing on the very self-reflection of subjects and collectives participating in social exaltation. For example, let's focus on the case of activists and artists joining forces with the Greek indignados, Greek aganaktismeni, back in the summer of 2011 at Syntagma Square. The contribution of the official artists team was to organize drawing workshops for children, produce banners and posters featuring sarcastic slogan, of course, organize performances, or facilitate a solidarity concert to entertain those resilient enough to camp in the square for days. In a context of patriotic sentimentalism, the artists team curated a series of performances that belong to a new genre of didactic cultural resistance. One way to see these performances is to downplay their importance by saying that they purchase a sentiment of fraternity, okay, a spontaneous sentiment of fraternity, which is more important than the, otherwise naive content of these performances. I don't believe that. I don't buy this explanation. I don't think that these performances were naive. In a performance called News, News is the thing they hang you from, yeah? A black-dressed figure, could be mine as well, anyway. A black-dressed figure representing the banks. Now you see here a poor image from the performance, but it's the only one I could find. A black-dressed figure representing the banks pulls the strings attached to its puppets, white-dressed women. The women try to escape, but the black figure violently pulls them back. The black figures scream while drums create a sense of suspense. By the end of the action, the women have kneeled down, and a song by the Greek composer Manos Hadzidakis is nostalgically sung by the team. Similar black figures appeared in another performance by the artists' team titled Souls. 6 or 7 black figures that look like witches or crows slowly rise from the ground, while others recite some poetry by the Greek anarchist poet Katerina Gogou. My friends are black birds that seesaw from roof to roof, and so on, some nostalgic and cliché abused lyrics in the Greek post-junta era. The figures reveal their faces and scream towards the people to wake them up and revolutionize them. Lots of black figures, as you see. I have to admit that I lack the proper analytical tools to explain this Gothic revival in the aesthetics of the Greek indignados. In another performance, the artists' team play the drums while they slowly march towards, I'm not very sure if I have it. No, I don't have it. Anyway, there's another one. Anyway, in another performance, the artists' team play the drums while they slowly march towards a big banner saying, "Take the traitors to Goudi." Goudi is an area with a shady past due to political executions that have taken place over time there. So the meaning is, execute the politicians. It's as simple as that. In another street theater play organized by the artists' team, 6 persons are participating in something that seems like a TV game, a TV show. They're supposed to fight to death for a piece of bread offered by the TV show host. The TV show host is actually played by a young actor, Giorgos Chranniotis, whose career has been built through participation in TV serial productions, actually. I propose that we should not understand these expressions as spontaneous outbursts of grassroots anti-neoliberalism. These subjects are not amateur artists who experiment with the socialization of their practices. Some of them, at least the ones organizing the Black Figures performances, have studied theater and performative arts outside the Greek borders. They have master degrees, and they're also elaborate enough to upload the recordings of these actions on their personal web portfolio. So nothing really naive about it. I believe that the peak of this moralistic model of activist engagement was reached in some late 2012 demonstrations, 1 year after the outbursts of the Indignados, when the Greek union Poeota organized a happening during Angela Merkel's visit to Athens, and union members were dressed up as Nazis to welcome Merkel. We should perhaps understand this type of activism as the exact opposite of the idea of over-identification or subversive affirmation. While subversive affirmation at its best reveals the structural inclusion of the subject in the frame, the act in question, this particular action, reveals a defense mechanism, an anxiety to cover up the traumatic truth. And the traumatic truth is that Greeks had just given 7% of the vote to a neo-Nazi party. So what kind of artistic strategy or activism would actually take into account this complexity, this moralistic deadlock? Well, certainly, such a strategy would be clever enough to reflect on its own urge to participate in social excitation and also scrutinize its role within dominant ideological enterprises. While humanist activism embraces theories of immanent change, I think that an anti-humanist approach has to question the very repertoire of political spontaneism, spot out its ideological overdeterminations, and problematize the self-explanatory references to community or the commons. Recent discussions on practices of over-identification can partially offer the framework for such a shift. Lots of work has to be done, but there's a stream of thought over there that I think is valuable. According to Bavo, a duo of architects and researchers, over-identification is indeed a strategy with concrete examples. You know, the Slovene NSK state in time, and over-identification with the totalitarian state and its aesthetics by Leibach and their allies, or the mimicry of corporations such as the World Trade Organization by the Yes Men, serve as crucial references in a discussion on over-identification. For Bavo, cultural practices of over-identification offer a radical alternative to the stern art of the so-called constructive critique of society. According to Bavo, these works are exemplary of a certain tendency in contemporary art, in which artists, faced by a world that is more than ever ruled by calculating cynicism, strategically give up their will to resist, capitulate to the status quo, and apply the latter's rules even more consistently and scrupulously than the rest of society. So, the enterprise of the art of over-identification is indeed, according to this Bavo sentence, described as a conscious renunciation of society's pathetic demand for small-scale creative acts, and interpreted as a deliberate urge to identify with society's most obscene dystopian phase. Well, while not dismissing Bavo's assessment on the strategic aspect of over-identification, I would like to offer a less heroic account of over-identification, the one I learned through the observation of Greek middle-class activism in this period of so-called crisis. And in fact, I'm willing to accept some of the consequences of spontaneism, spontaneity in political and cultural action. The subjects engaged in acts of over-identification cannot always be sophisticated activists with strategic intentions. Over-identification is not some full-on avant-garde attack on social systems of power and control. This would actually restore humanism through the back door. To start experimenting with over-identification is to accept that one is fully imbricated in a social bond in a field that does not pose neat and unproblematically clear choices between resistance and conformism. And it is here that another type of intentionality in cultural activism, beyond naive humanism, could be applied and tested. So as Stefan Tsukaitis has put it, for example, the applicability of over-identification is not founded upon its straightforward and unproblematic nature, but precisely because of its very ambivalence. Over-identification becomes a way not to provide a completely worked out solution or direction to the problems posed by the current political situation, but rather works to refuse the closure enacted by the existence of roles and position. Now, I think, in the context of cultural practice amidst the Greek crisis, that the most delicate examples of an anti-humanist art practice emerged out of the local queer scene. I'm not ready to offer a convincing explanation why this happened, but I'm sure that the proliferation of ideas about social gender and queer performativity taking place during the last decade enhanced a skepticist political stance that sees the questioning of ideological orthodoxies as the most urgent enterprise for radical politics. To reflect on Dimitris Papanikolaou's yesterday wonderful speech on the queer Athens, I have to specify that I will not suggest that the queer scene is the liberal counterpart to the activism of the indignados. On the contrary, these subjectivities share the same class borders, they belong to the same social strata, they probably educated themselves at the same institutions, but certain experiences have enhanced another type of self-reflection and action. The unexpected emergence of magazines, such as the QV magazine, the slow appearance of gender studies in Greek academic curricula, the organization of the first annual queer festivals in local LGBT groups are certainly landmarks in this short history of the outbreak of the Athenian and Thessalonikian queer space. So perhaps this explains why the most delicate manifestations of queer art, practice, and performativity was not developed by Greek art students, but from students of social science, psychology, and culture. The nuanced feature of this queer scene is a DIY experimentation with publications, web forums, meetings, parties, and festivals. A truly outward moment was the circulation of the subversive fanzine Pustia και Όλεθρος, Fagotness and Calamity. Each issue of the fanzine is a calculated attack on the mainstream traditional humanist core of life in Greece. A very popular issue is subtitled Ενάντια στο φιλότιμο, against Greek pride, or better, against the amity to pride. The contributors try to undermine this atavistic Greek notion of philotimo, the traditional moral idea that even if you have lost everything, you must continue to fight against losing your pride. So we are poor, but we are proud, and we are indulged by this show-off of this pride. So the authors of this magazine perceive this moral maxim as an oppressive and heterosexist norm. The DIY aesthetic of the fanzine employs a typical situationist détournement of images through a very primordial photomontage. So here are some examples. This one, home is a place that once we put under contestation, we've never been there. And the following example certainly rejects the naturalist prejudice of various expressions of resistance that I presented before. Nature is a political system of disciplinations and compulsions. I guess that you can see the difference between the guys at the eco-communities and this approach. I think that there is a rift there. There's no reason to sort of try to bridge this particular rift. And of course, the best is in the back cover of the magazine, of the fanzine, in the manner of warnings in cigarette ads, warning, work makes the man. Work makes the man. It's an unexpected adaptation of the refrain of a popular Greek light folk song. The song makes fun of traditional men that show off their manliness by playing with their glass beads. I'm not sure if I have any. No, I don't have any. Yeah. Anyway, I had a very provocative picture by Rena Duru, a member of the left-wing Syriza party, playing with the glass beads, actually, but I forgot to bring it with me. Anyway. Okay. So the song makes fun of traditional men that show off their manliness by playing with these glass beads. You've seen these Greek glass beads. Well, they're not Greek, but Greeks use them as well anyway. In their palms, and by being lazy. So the refrain of this traditional song says, "Don't make noise with these glass beads. Work makes the man. The construction site, the hod, the trowel. So stop pretending to be some kind of, work. You're a man when you work." Okay, this is the traditional version of the song. So I think here, what we have in this kind of very minimal intervention is an excellent case of adaptation as subversive affirmation. Why? Because it achieves two things at once. At first, it extends this traditional mockery of costless manliness towards today's heterosexist manliness, and at the same time highlights and exposes heterosexism in this very tradition, as a part of this very tradition in which the song belongs to. The song dismisses the lazy guy with the glass beads as an expression of a lesser manliness that does not honor the working class. This is all about it. So in this minimal inscription, a certain destabilization of tradition is taking place here. A relevant strategy of ambivalence was developed by Fita, which you know very well these days. Already laughing back there. Okay, so Fita, plants, Fita is plants, is the duo of F78 and F89. When they first appeared, the few pictures of them in circulation presented their faces covered by small plants. Their debut was the DIY album Amphi back in 2012 at bandcamp.com. More recordings would soon follow. Their written declarations express the intention to disrupt dominant Greek narratives, including those of gender and mainstream social radicalism. One of the members of Fita is also a central figure in QV magazine and Pustia and Olefros. Both members have several bitter experiences with the macho side of the Greek anarchist and anti-authoritarian culture, and also, feel at odds with the rather opaque existence of left anti-Semitism in such spaces. These are the particular experiences I mentioned before. These guys participated in a debate about these issues inside the anti-authoritarian space before the acceleration of the crisis, before the new collectivism that emerged out of indignation. Also before the collectivism of Embros Theater, which to a certain extent, in my view, reproduces some of the discussion.
Okay, but you are very misinformed. Pustia και Olefros, QVZ, and all these associations were part of queer festival that was organized by artists.
Can I go on?
Yes.
You are misinformed. These festivals, which I attended, started a long time before the existence of Embros. It's very good that Embros followed that tradition and did what they did. Okay, whatever. Yes, queer festivals did not start. Okay. I was after 2008 at queer festivals at Scaramanga Squad before Embros existed, and I was there at the State Metal Storm at queer festivals created by these guys a long time before Embros. Excuse me. Why am I? Why do you use this? Sorry?
It was part of Embros, and you are
part of the process, excuse me, the beer festivals that took place back in 2009.
No. You are now referring to the process. There are not any more the process, but you are misinformed.
About what? Tell me. About what?
Maybe a bros have very many Mazoist people, but not only
I didn't mention the bros. I mentioned that these guys have done their experiences, this kind of experiences, before the existence of the bros. Already in their squads that they participate in. They have experienced this kind of sides of anti-authoritarian space, and they've turned against it. They criticized it before the experience of the bros. This is what I'm saying. Where is the misinforming party?
About collectivism. You are misinformed about collectivism.
What is misinformed?
The presentation you heard before about the Bros Theatre has nothing absolutely to do with collectivism.
This is your point of view. I think it has to do with collectivism or not. I'm sorry to say. It is a prominent example of collectivism. Why?
Can you
Sure.
explain to me what bros has to do with collectivism?
Well, what Bros has to do with collectivism? First of all, it is initiated by a group of people who call themselves a collective.
So what if
No, that doesn't mean anything.
call themselves a clown? That means going to red, according to your logic.
Many other groups participating in Bros call themselves a collective.
Sorry, but
Sorry,
you are
this is something.
missing so many different things.
Yes.
Trying to prove something that is really...
Can I speak? Can I speak? Because as I was speaking, I experienced four interruptions. 4 interruptions.
So did Vassilis. Interruption may be productive.
I can even stop if you like.
Excuse me, I would like to hear the lecture and then
I can even stop if you like. There's no problem if I stop. There's no big issue for me to do this here. I can even stop. These guys have to say it very seriously.
You can discuss rather than talk.
You really, it's really indicative of the fact that this and I say this form of collectivism cannot stand even a sentence of criticism. Even just a small spot of critical reflection. They cannot even stay and listen. They go, look, this is collective. Yes, but you said what you had said before. You said what you said. Tell me what you said. Tell me, repeat the homophobic statement that you made before. Repeat the homophobic statement that you made before. Can you repeat it now?
Sorry. Please, people, try to calm down. Please, I really...
Yeah, this is why I'm here
Ilya,
to say. I'm speaking because I'm saying whatever crossed my mind. You want me to tell you what you want to hear? I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to say whatever crossed my mind. This is what I'm hearing.
So please, people,
please understand there's an audience here who is trying to understand what's going on. It's not part of it.
okay, I see the necessity of a very intense discussion, and I dare to say we can make it after, because there is, I have to say, to inform also this public and this audience that exactly this discussion in this constellation hasn't been taking place in Greece at that form. So it's also difficult to address all these kind of issues that they are like in the scene very, very, very intense and very present. But I would be like, as an organizer, very open to do that. But I would suggest to continue with your lecture, and if you can try to sort a little bit, if you like. Wait a minute. Because, wait a minute.
First of all, I can stop here.
No.
Secondly, we started late.
Yes, wait a minute. I want to say something else.
We started late, and then I'm interrupted
Yes.
by 4 persons in the audience.
Okay, we can also do it like this.
What do you want me to do? Just
No.
cut the paper?
No, I don't want to cancel the
What
paper.
should I do?
We have another 2 participants that they want their time. I will give you the time, but maybe if you don't like any discussion at all, then...
I think I will stop here. Actually, I think I will stop here.
No,
I'm
continue with the
not
lecture.
going on. I will stop here.
I would like to say something. I would like to say something as a co-organizer. I think there are people here, I just want to say, there are people here who want to hear the lecture as part of the organizing team.
I don't want to give the lecture.
I mean, we're here to hear you and listen to you.
We're here to hear you.
Sorry, you missed a chance.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, maybe we should consider talking about how we would like to talk to each other. I have no idea about the discussion has been going on for a long time, and I'm really interested in listening to it, but I feel we're talking about a queer scene, but here's a lot of machismo in the way how we talk with each other. This is like not...
This is not a general assembly. It is a 5-day event with a certain program. Okay. So if one cannot exactly have the time to present a speech, what is written.
No, but this is also a common space. We can still negotiate the way how we want to talk.
I mean, it's obviously up to you. I just want to make sure that everybody here is heard. We are here to hear you.
I'm not repeating it, take it as a performance.
No, I don't mean that. I'm just saying that this is not... We don't understand half of it.
Not anything can be reconciliated.
Okay, then I will just say that we will just wait until the next time, because that is the time that is given to you, and then we will go with the next thing, as the time was given, whether you're here or not. We'll wait now until the next point. The next one.
Please do the talk.
So, as a matter of fact, now we will continue with the next guest, and then, yeah, we apologize for that, but it's not that easy to have consensus in this sense. We'll take like a 5 to 10 minutes break to put the next one, and then we'll be back. Thank you.